Jim Cornette, the firebrand professional wrestling, sat in his Louisville home, surrounded by memorabilia from a career that spanned decades. His voice, sharp as ever on the Jim Cornette Experience, softened as he reflected on a life he nearly lived, one far removed from the squared circle. The wrestling world knew him as a manager, booker, and podcaster, but few knew the paths he almost took. Dreams that flickered before the ring became his destiny. Born in 1961, Cornette was a wrestling fanatic from childhood, rigging a 10-foot antenna to catch regional broadcasts. By 14, he was a ringside photographer, soaking up the chaos of Louisville Gardens. But wrestling wasn't his only love. "I was a comic book nerd," he admitted, his eyes glinting with nostalgia. "I collected Spider-Man, X-Men, anything with a good story. I wanted to write for Marvel." In his teens, Cornette penned fan newsletters, not just about wrestling but about superheroes, crafting tales of Caped Crusaders with the same passion he'd later bring to promos. He imagined a life scripting comics, weaving narratives of good versus evil, not unlike the storylines he'd one day craft for the Midnight Express. In 1979, while still a teenager, Cornette sent a portfolio to Marvel's offices in New York. His stories, raw but vivid, caught the eye of an editor who sent back a letter. Not a job offer, but encouragement to refine his craft. "I was this close," he said, holding thumb and forefinger an inch apart. But wrestling was calling louder. The allure of the ring, with its larger-than-life characters and immediate feedback from roaring crowds, pulled him away. By 1982, at 21, he was managing Sherry Martel in Memphis. His comic book dreams showed beside stacks of amazing fantasy. Yet, another path beckoned in the late 80s, during his time with Jim Crockett Promotions. Cornette, then in his mid-20s, was already a wrestling savant, but he was also a history buff. "I'd read anything, Civil War, Roman Empire, you name it," he said. A promoter in Charlotte, impressed by his encyclopedic knowledge, suggested he try sports journalism. Cornette's father, a Louisville newspaper editor, had left him a knack for words and a love for research. He toyed with the idea of writing for a local paper, covering high school football or baseball, blending his storytelling with the drama of sports. He even drafted a few columns, sharp-witted pieces that echoed his later podcast rants. The journalism dream fizzled when the Midnight Express hit its peak. "We were making too much money," he chuckled, recalling the $5,600 he earned in 2 weeks in 1984 Mid-South Wrestling, equivalent to $16,900 today. The road life, grueling as it was, offered a rush no newsroom could match. "I couldn't trade sellout crowds for a typewriter," he said. Still, he wondered what might have been. A life of bylines, maybe a column in the Courier-Journal, dissecting Kentucky's sports scene with the same fervor he brought to burying Vince Russo on air. By the 90s, as he ran Smoky Mountain Wrestling, another fork appeared: politics. Cornette's outspoken nature and knack for rallying crowds drew attention from local Democratic organizers. "They thought I could run for city council," he laughed. His Democratic Socialist leanings, later vocalized on the Young Turks in 2017, were already simmering. He imagined a life advocating for workers, maybe even gun control, as he'd later championed during the 2018 March for Our Lives. But wrestling's chaos kept him tethered. "I couldn't leave the business," he said. "It's like a drug. You hate it, but you need it." Reflecting on these roads not taken, Cornette's voice grew introspective. Comics would have been quiet, me, a desk, and ideas. Journalism would have been steady, respectable. Politics? Hell, I had been canceled faster than a bad angle. Wrestling, for all its flaws, gave him a stage to be unfiltered, to scream into the void and hear it scream back. His podcasts, The Jim Cornette Experience and Drive-Thru, now among the most popular in wrestling, let him blend all three dreams: storytelling, history, and rabble-rousing. "I don't regret it," he said, glancing at a framed photo of him with a tennis racket. "But sometimes I wonder about that kid writing Spider-Man stories or chasing scoops. Maybe employment and what they found would give the team national and international exposure." Cornette later reflected that they were willing to give Dallas a try, as they welcomed living in a modern city, as well as the easier travel schedule when compared to Mid-South.